This is all about the insert guitar effect. I think this one causes the most confusion, and I might even have to admit the block diagram is not your friend in this case. Now, the input dynamics effects are correctly shown. The diagram shows one of the 8 inputs, so you'd expect there to be 8 of everything. And this is correct. There are 8 input inserts. Likewise, the send effect has a single send bus going to it, send 1, so you could deduce there is only one send effect. Again, this is true. Unfortunately, this is not true for the track or guitar insert effect. There are 24 or 32 tracks depending on your machine, but there is only one track insert effect. In addition, it cannot be used at all if you have more than 2 input dynamic effects inserted. So what's so different about this one, and where is it? Well, it's here on the diagram, and as mentioned before, it can be in one of 2 positions, either in the recording path or the playback path. And this doesn't mean the machine has to be recording or playing back. You choose where the effect goes at any time by using a switch in the effect screen. Here's the screen. Press effect. Now, as we've seen, it's shared with the send effect, so press F1 if necessary. And here's the rec, play, record, playback switch I mentioned. Now, at the moment, we're only looking at the machine as a mixer, so you might think this switch makes no difference. But there is a subtle one. The metering point is here, so if the switch is in the rec position, the meter will show the signal after passing through the effect. If it's in the play position, the meter shows the signal before it reaches the effect. Okay, so what about the effect itself? Now, this is where the term effect gets confusing. The guitar effect is really a block of 4 separate effects in a chain. So to avoid ambiguity, I'm going to call the whole thing a chain or a block. And here are the effects within the block: a noise suppressor, a guitar amp, a compressor, and one called effect. I'm saying nothing. You cannot change the order of the 4 effects in the chain, although you can insert or bypass each one independently using their respective on-off switches. You also cannot take effects out of the block and use them somewhere else. So whatever you do with the block, those 4 effects go with it. Now, this 4th effect, called effect, is different to the others, as it can be one of 6 types. It can be a chorus, a flanger, phaser, tremolo, alto wah, and delay. But it can only be one of these at any one time. So, although there's only one block, it's pretty versatile. And you might have noticed some duplication with the dynamics effects and send effect. So this gives you a choice for certain effects. Say you need a reverb and a delay. Well, the send effect can do the reverb, and the guitar effect can do the delay. Right, now for another twist. With the dynamics effect, the on-off button inserts or removes the effect from the input path. Straightforward. Go back to the guitar effects. Now, we've just seen the on-off buttons for the guitar effect. There's one for each of the 4 effects in the chain. So one for this one called effect. There's one for the noise suppressor, one for the amp. I'll leave the amp on, and one for the compressor. So if you go back through, you can see the effect is on, noise suppressor off, amp is on. That seems okay, but here's the twist. The on-off buttons have no effect on the block itself. Instead, the whole block is inserted into a track or removed by using the track's select button when the effect screen is displayed. I'll just move it off this one called effect because we're going to get confused. Say I have a guitar amp. To insert it into a track, you press the track select button. It's now inserted into track 4. If I press another track select button, 6, it's removed from track 4 and it's placed in track 6. There is only one block. If you press the select button again, that removes it, and the track display goes to dashes to show the block is no longer inserted. Now why does this matter? Surely if all the effects are bypassed, if we switch them all off, it shouldn't matter whether the block's inserted into a track or not. It's just like inserting a simple piece of wire. It should not make any difference. Well, the machine thinks otherwise. It thinks the block is competing for processing power regardless of its contents. So it puts a restriction on the number of dynamic effects you can use. So even if all the effects in the chain are off, like they are here, if the block is inserted, you're limited to 2 dynamic effects instead of 8. I go to Dynamics, I'll insert a compressor on input A, insert a compressor on input B, and try and insert a noise suppressor on input C, we get the error. Now this weird design decision doesn't do Tascam any favours, as it gives the impression the machine is more limited than it is. If you're just getting to grips with the machine and find you cannot use more than 2 dynamic effects, even though all the guitar effects are off, you'll get quite a negative impression. Now I just mentioned the other way of inserting or removing this guitar block. We saw it before by using the jog wheel in the mixer screen. Go to the mixer and select any of the tracks. This box here, called Insert Effect, reflects the guitar insert effect, and we can turn it on and off from here. Now there seems to be no issues with switching it from here, although as we saw before, it's dangerous to use this method for the input dynamics insert effects. If you have an input selected, you can switch this on and off here. That's the input dynamics effect, but as we saw, it might not insert the effect you're expecting. Right, there's also a library system, just like the send effect, for saving and recalling settings. There's some presets and some spare user slots for your own settings. Now when I did some experiments earlier, I don't think the library saves the noise suppressor. This one. These settings are not saved. It might just be this particular level of firmware, but worth checking. Right, that's the last effect now for mixing. So I'll just recap all 3 types for comparison. The input dynamics insert effects. Oh, that's these. There are 8 of these. Each one can be one of 4 types at any one time. And you can insert any of them in each input path in any combination. But you cannot chain them together. The total number of effects is restricted to 2 if the guitar effect block is inserted anywhere. Now the track insert effects, or guitar insert, there's one of these, as you've just seen. It's a block of 4 effects in a fixed chain. 3 of the effects are fixed types, and the 4th can be one of 6 types at any one time. And if you insert the block into a track, it is automatically removed from its previous insertion point. You cannot insert the block if more than 2 dynamic effects are inserted anywhere. The send effect, there's one of these, and it can be one of 3 types at any one time. It can be fed via send 1 with any combination of input or track signals. Okay, finally that wraps it up for mixing. So next up is recording. So thanks for watching and see you then.